Hello, hello, everyone. I am so excited. I did a thing. I did a couple of things, actually. I made a few decks. And what my plan, not so much a goal, but more like I had a plan for 2022 as the year of the lovers. I wanted to fall back in love with my creative process, and what that looked like for me was to get back on the horse, if you will. And so I made a couple of proclamations to myself as to what that journey will look like, and how I kind of tried to map out how I would reflect that on the channel as well. And what better way than to share some of my artistic endeavors with you guys. So I, first and foremost, I did a thing. I made a Kofi page. That way, for all the content that I put out, for future videos, for the time that I put in to a lot of my research-based videos, like my thought videos, there's so much research that goes into those that I finally had, over the course of last year, I finally had to like knock out imposter syndrome and just be like, listen, Lennon, talking to myself in front of my mirror, you need to be getting paid for some of this. And not that I would demand a lot, but for those who really enjoy the content or just want to tip, like a lot of people do, I think the thing is buy me a coffee. Okay, and I love coffee. So there's a tip service on my Kofi page, but then also I wanted to, I guess, share on that creative page some like zines, some worksheets that I had come up with long ago for how I map out and study thought. I want to type all of that out and be able to give that through like downloads, through like PDF downloads for everybody to print, especially if they're learning the thought and they come to the channel, watching the videos. I want to condense a lot of that information into some worksheets. So those will be things for you to download. I've already put a couple of things out and or on the page. So I'm going to show a couple of what I've already put out into the workings. Now, along with my Kofi page, which all the links will be below for everything I talk about today. So go check out the Kofi page. But then the second thing I did was I made a couple of decks towards the end of 2021. I really got gung-ho. The wand energy was coming out and I was fighting with myself about having so many ideas, but then not executing any of them. And I guess I'll put all of this aside for a second and show you something that if you've been with me for a while, you know that I made a couple of decks through Make Playing Cards, like a year ago, or maybe it was the beginning of my channel. I made this Noble Art tarot. Oh, that's that. So that's my Oracle deck, and I really sat with these. I used them a couple of times. I mean that Lilith Devil is just like it's just so perfect. Anyways. Some of these images, I think why I made this, look at that Nine of Wands. Oh my goodness. Like the expression on this figure's face. And then isn't this a perfect Six of Pentacles? And it's just like, make sure I'm in frame. I mean, the giving and receiving of coins is just like so perfect for this card. Here's my death card. And I really needed, and I was having such a hard time finding death as like a dark goddess figure, because even in art and with it, I like the skeletal nature, but in terms of art and like how I would depict death, it's more of an earthly earth plus water card, I guess you could say. And that reminds me of this like dark mother, I guess. Anyways, so I made this, but because there's nudity, I can't sell it on Make Playing Cards. I would be able to like say print bulk of this and then sell it to whoever wanted it, I could do that, but it wasn't approved for sale like through their website. So I made this years ago. I do love using it just for myself. Like, look at that Four of Wands, like the structure here. I mean, it was just, I think I made this because Majestic Earth came out, and that deck for me was so expensive at the time I could not purchase it, and then it became out of print, and then everybody wanted it, and I was like, you know, I am an art researcher, like at heart, not for a job, but I could make something like this, I told myself. And I went on a like months and months long journey of finding what I considered the perfect images for a deck, or what would have been, and I ended up making like Mariana. This Five of Cups for Mariana is like my favorite depiction of the Five of Cups because it goes along measure for measure. Alfred Lord Tennyson, just, you know, they're depictions of this maiden looking and searching for something. So I think I might have made this because I couldn't afford Majestic Earth. But anyways, I don't even know if this would have done well. I mean, look at that. Another nude, but it's Seven of Swords. I mean, they're literally, the figure is moving away from something, and the expression signifies that they're like running away from something quickly. So, I mean, a lot of the pre-Raphaelites and then some others. This Medea is a figure that is so important to me. She is so important to me and has been for many, many years. And so having her depicted here with Jason and I guess whoever the new bride of Jason is after he had married and had babies with Medea. I don't know. So anyway, such a perfect deck. I don't want to ramble about it because it's technically not for sale, but I think maybe I'll try to come up with another way to put this out if anyone's interested. So that, I started the process on this. It didn't work out, but all the other decks that I have made did come to fruition. And for instance, this is what I call Cantescent Oracle. Now, candescent meaning like candlelight. I used images, art images from mainly the chiaroscuro art era, the Caravaggio kinds of paintings where it's really dark and the light is the focus. The light on the figures is the focus. And so that was important to me to have this kind of art plus shadow plus light deck to work with in the shadow, to work with in an art way, to work with it in a journal way, and also to use words with the suffix shun as more internalized words, more conceptualized words. And it really worked out. I love this figure with the statue here and calling it idolization, because there was so much trigger in me in the beginning of my spiritual practice where I had to shun that priest that was in my head telling me that I couldn't have statues of things, that I couldn't have relics of things or amulets, or I couldn't make anything for my spiritual practice because it would be considered idolization. It was like that fine line, right? And I just love that this figure that's doing almost like ritual, but there's this statue here. It just spoke to me of idolization, creation, someone painting, tradition. I love that this figure looks like she's telling a story. Evocation. I did use Jesus figures, but in this deck, it's known, but it's almost on the back burner, and that was okay to me, and it's actually pretty powerful. Once the deck was finished, it was so powerful. Evocation, like they're giving an evocation. I love that. I like this perception because in this tiny snow globe, which I don't even know if there was the thing back then, but there's a tiny figure, so it's almost like gaining some. That this changing your perspective and changing your perception of things is another good word. I got a lot of action. This grandfather figure looks to be making something, like carving something with the help of this child, and they're manifesting something. This is one of my favorite images in this entire deck. It's called Prioritization. And once I tweaked all of the font to where all the font is the same. I actually tweaked the font to something else, I think, and changed the coloration and things like that. So I've changed all that for the deck that actually went to Make Playing Cards for sale. So you guys can check those images out. I put it on default, so you might only be able to see a few, but I'll probably go through a couple of... Anyway, so this figure is sitting here and drinking, and the face, that the expression on their face is so like blasé, but then there's this fire in the background. Like what is he doing? Why is he sitting there so calm when there's basically a fire, an explosion happening in the background? So I'm not going to show you all the cards. Interference, I did want to show, oh, this one is one of my favorites, transmission, because it's a black mirror. It's a scrying mirror, and it was so important for me to have something to do with witchcraft. There's Narcissus doing his reflection there. This is another one of my favorite images. Now, this is two figures in the grand painting that is used here by Caravaggio. This is actually Judith. But for the purpose of this oracle card, I zoomed it in to see these two figures, because in terms of transformation, this figure of Judith, but it's just any figure, is actually this older figure. So it's almost like they're the same figure, and it's about that transition, that transformation. And so that was really nice. Had to have Fusili in there for procrastination, this nightmare painting. I got a little Bosch in there. Even though Bosch isn't considered chiaroscuro, it was still really, really, really nice. I have a couple of monks and priests imagery. This is comprehension. It looks like the light is so low that he's really trying to look and see what the words are on this illuminated manuscript. I actually have some divination in here. This figure here is, I called the card enchantment, but they're reading this soldier's palm. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. Absorption for the mirror. And so this is almost like a vanity card, being absorbed with self and things like that. Let's see. I got Bacchus in here for abundance. It was so perfect to have Bacchus in there. I actually have Bacchus a couple of times. We could technically say that this was someone else, that this isn't Bacchus, but technically in the painting he is. And it's abundance because he's got all of this stuff around him, this wine. But then here, this figure of Bacchus is squeezing the grapes into the vessel. And I called this invention as a way like he invented wine. So look, this is Jesus, and he's demonstrating, he's showing his wound where he got hit with a spear. And I call this demonstration we give that we use our whole body for. And this is it was a very important oracle for me for so long. I still use it. And then the last card I'll show is, I love this flotation. She looks enraptured by something, in ecstasy. And it's almost like when we're enraptured like that, we feel like we're floating on cloud 9. So that was really nice. And then resilience is the last card I'll show, because this is zoomed in so much, and for me to get the pixelation right was so hard. But it's like she's holding the top of the card up and we don't know what she's holding up. That's why I call it resilience. And I was just able to get the image so perfect. So anyways, that is the Cantescent Oracle that is available on Make Playing Cards. The Make Playing Cards shop link will be below. So go check out all the creations. I'm not going to show you the backs because I changed the backs to a very, very perfect picture. So you'll be able to see that when you look at the preview. And I keep them in this, together, my tarot and my oracle, in this zip bag. And then my newest creations is my brand new oracle that I made using photography, and it was so perfect. I've done so many readings with this so far, and it's called my Wild Nature, Wild You, because another proclamation for this year, for 2022, was to get to the crux of myself and to find my essence. And the way I want to do that is mirror find a way to mirror nature with myself, find the mirror involved between the wildness of nature and myself. And that will be something of a journey, a quest that I will go on through the course of this entire year, and hopefully make it a part of my practice actually. So I came up with this oracle using images of nature to really tap into the core of the mirror, where the place where nature and humanity intersect. So I'll show you a few cards. I do plan on doing a full walkthrough of this and the next deck I will show you. So if you want to see all the cards, you can wait around for the full walkthroughs. Look at that. This is my robin. It speaks to me of like the secret garden. This is the first image I came up with. This was actually such a process, this oracle, because I came up with all 63 words. I mean, look at this deck. This is a pretty chunky deck, you know, minus all these. And it just ended up being a perfect number for an oracle deck, and really juicy to come up with. This was the first image that I tied with the name. I came up with all the words first, and then I went through my database to find some photos that would relate, nature images, you know, and it just worked out so perfect. Look at Yellowstone here. Create. So perfect. Look at the abyss. And I used the words that would be synonymous with my wild self. That was important. I use barbaric. I have a couple of what I consider boundary cards that are like this. Barbaric, like when is it necessary, right? I got secure as like a hide card. I actually took this image of the moon using my telescope, and it just turned out so foggy and mysterious that it was so perfect. Offering, a pomegranate there. Enchant. I knew I needed like some kind of inner child cards with this, because it speaks to me of my childhood watching the fireflies, and find what enchants you now, you know. I do have a couple of like writer cards, like phrases instead of just keywords, which actually end up working perfect for the deck. Sensuous, because that's a part of your wild self. Let's see. I do have a couple of animals, not a lot. I have a few that I knew I needed as embodiments to what I wanted to convey, like howl, words like prowl, howl, roar. Those types of words that could be synonymous with the wild self are about the noises we make in the throes of being wild. So the animals go with more the noise and the sounds we make, the chants and litanies. Weaver, had to have a little spider card. Let's get to some of my favorites, like wonder. There's a whole bunch of violence happening in this card. Of course, I needed a chrysalis. And then in like boundary cards like this, you know, where it's about building your wall, but then it's not all roses, you know. I mean, this is an illusion card, which could go on the mystery of the moon card that I showed a minute ago. But illusion is a mirage. You are seeing what you want to see. It is not about you can't see in front of you. You can, and you're seeing what you want to see, not what's actually there. So those things are actually really important to have in terms for your brain to process. And then the last card I'll show is the card that I showed in a previous video as like a, you know, sneak peek. It was my beautiful, absolute favorite card in this deck is my Nectar card. So that's probably a little under half the deck that I'm showing you. But like I said, there will be a full walkthrough of the Wild Nature, Wild You. I do have guidebooks for this on my Kofi page to download. So all you got to do is go over to the Kofi page. I think I put it at like a $2 or $3 price range, and you just download the PDF file right off Kofi. I think it's a little white book. It's a booklet, so I think I made 40. I think it's like 40 pages of a little on each card with a question. So the guidebook's really nice if you are interested. So, but you don't have to use the guidebook if you don't want to. And then the last deck I'll show you is my absolute magnum opus for this creative endeavor of all this. And that is my Thoth, baby, okay? It was very important for me to have a Thoth-based nature deck this year because I use the Thoth so much for so many things that I kind of went on a journey at the very beginning of this year, well, towards the end of last year, 2021, where it was such a channeled experience. I went through this, I don't even know how I came up with these images. I know that sounds crazy, but I just picked them. I internalized the messages of the cards, I picked the image, and then that was it. I let it go. And it's such a project that I'm so proud of that I had to share it with you guys. So I'll show a few cards. Again, I'm going to do actually 2 walkthroughs of this deck side by side with the Thoth. One video will be all majors and then the other will be minors. Like, look at that. 3 of Pentacles, the Works card. I actually have 2 editions on Make Playing Cards for this. In my edition, my original edition, I didn't put the suit names. But then I thought, you know, a lot of people come to my Thoth Thursdays to learn the Thoth system. So if they wanted to have an elemental based deck, I'm calling this the Wild Essence Thoth Tarot because essence is my word and so is wild. It's an elemental Thoth, right? We're getting back down to the crux of the meanings of the Thoth here. And for those learning the system, I do have a second edition. It's the exact same cards, but I tweaked the bottom to include the suit names. So if you want that edition on Make Playing Cards, I think it says Wild Essence Thoth, and in parentheses it says suit words or something like that. So you'll be able to tell once you get to the shop which edition has the words, the suit names, and then which edition is this one, which doesn't. Look at Aeon. Can't tell if that's a sunrise or a sunset, which is the perfect message for the Aeon card. Not Ace of Swords. See, it's very elemental. You know, we're tapping into what picture from Thoth, you know, from nature that could be related to these cards. Like, look at the two of discs. Is this purple erosion wall, rock wall, sand wall? I think that in terms of the Pentacle suit, and then the keyword being change, it is about earthly change, the change the earth goes through. But because it's just the 2, it's a slow change, right? It's the slow burn of the earth. The things that happen over long periods of time. Look at it. The prince, the court cards in this deck are the animals present on the Thoth cards. So whether that's on armor, whether that's the main animal for me in terms of symbolism. For the sword suits, that's definitely the birds that are there. This is a very chaotic card in the Thoth system. So I knew I needed the birds going all kinds of ways. Look at Ace of Discs. I use the linden leaf here because we actually see a linden leaf on the Thoth card. So it was so important to try to lock into, like I said, the core of the essence, the core of the essence. This ended up being so perfect for the 4 of Wands. I just could not believe it. Look at the Magus. I'll show you a couple of majors if we get to them. The Magus was perfect. The first couple of cards are unmanifest, basically. It's just something happening on the macro level. And I knew I needed some kind of cosmos-like images to represent those cards. And they ended up being perfect. And then, of course, the last card is the universe in the shape of this eye, which was so perfect. Because if you look at the Thoth universe card, it is in the shape of an eye. Look at failure. In the 7 of discs, we see, there's a lot of discs in here. In my stack here. I guess get to some cups. Anyway, this is 7 of discs. You see this like ivy covered coins, this like mayhem happening, and this purple ivy just was so perfect. Here's the 5 of cups, this disappointment card. And for me, that's about you've let your emotions go to a point where you haven't put anything in terms of maturity. You haven't put anything into working on your emotional maturity. And the water has just eroded down until you get to this canyon, which you can't do anything with. You know, you can't fill up a vessel if there's a canyon in the middle. So here's the 2 of Swords. Peace. I like how there was actually two here, two Ouroboros shapes here. That was important. But also this piece of night, piece of like this kind of eerie nighttime, twilight time, where it seems like everything is at peace at that time. That's the Two of Wands. The keyword was dominion for wands. And when you're talking about drive and willpower and things like that, inspiration, it's first and foremost is the plan. It's setting up what your kingdom is going to look like so that you can put things that you create inside of your kingdom to protect it. That's the whole purpose of this card, Dominion. Well, I got a hurricane for the Nine of Swords. I mean, when we look at the Knight of Discs, that's just so perfect because there's a deer on his helmet. And so I do plan on doing a full walkthrough of this. I don't know if I'll show you anymore. Oh, look at the Chariot. I'll show you, like, you know, major. And then I guess last, because I talked about the majors being unmanifest at the beginning, I will show you the Fool card. Here's the Fool card. This birth canal, black hole, unmanifest card that I just love. This card is so perfect for this deck. Oh my goodness. So those were a few of my cards from the Wild Essence Thoth. Again, I have full walkthroughs coming. This is already on Make Playing Cards. And the guidebook for this is also on my Kofi page. You have to just go, you know, it's like a couple of dollars and you download it. And I think, again, this is like 40 to 50 pages long. So I'll explain all that in the walkthroughs of this deck probably. So, and then last, I wanted to show one of the creations that I have on the Kofi page is this charm casting sheet that I did show in a previous video. It was just so perfect, and I love it so much for charm casting and for building a reading out of it, that it works so perfect for me that I had to be able to share it with you guys. So I actually printed it on cardstock, like it's like thin cardstock. It's thicker than copy paper, but it's a little bit thicker than that. Or it's a little bit thinner than like normal cardstock. But it's so perfect. I keep it on my Sacred Space table, my witchy table, and I just cast or do the finger thing, do the pendulum thing. I mean, this could be anything. And all you got to do is, I mean, there's all these positive words because I made this for self-love. Like when I feel down and out and things like that, I use it to map out the day's energy, you know, whether I'm appreciated, what am I appreciated for? Am I feeling frisky, you know? Am I courageous? What do I need courage for? Things like that. I just try to use the words to build a self-love practice for that day, for that moment and whatever. And it just works so perfect. So I do have this. I actually have it printed physically. So that's why I wanted to show it. So go check out Make Playing Cards. Check out all my decks. I do have one more deck on there that I made. I made that a while ago. It's called the Bell Book and Candle Oracle. Again, it's 63 cards. It is probably the same size, or it is the same size as this. So it'll be the exact same size as this. But it's made up of images of like standard license images of altars. And like altar work, mirror work, things to do with witchcraft and spell work. And they don't have any keywords, no numbers. I use them mainly for altar cards to show where the focus needs to be. But it's not about keywords. It's not about anything like that. It's just pictures for your intuition to bounce off of in terms of like what your witchcraft needs to be, what you need to do in your witchcraft practice today or this week or whatever. And it's been working out really well, but I didn't want to share that just yet. But it's already up on Make Playing Cards if you want to check that out. So go check out that. Check out my Kofi page, and I'll continue to leave the links in all of the future videos. So, you know, if you just come on and like the content, you can buy me a coffee over there. And I have a couple more projects in the work for 2022 that will be on one of those platforms that I will definitely be making videos about throughout the process, and I will tell you when they're all available on those platforms. So I'm so excited. Happy 2022. Hope to see you again on the channel. Much love.